If you didn't see already, I replied to Jim Reed about some stuff and in the first send. I see you replied again. Almost 30. Do you get those emails? I don't think somebody that you have a chance to disagree. Because they got a couple and they came last year. So they've started having the. There's nothing we need to do.
All right, it is 1 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Chelsea. I serve as the program manager for Gateway to the Rockies Opioid Council, Region 10, also referred to as GROC. We're going to start with some introductions, attendance and quorum. We'll move into governance and approval of minutes. Today's conflicts of interest, a really brief finance report, some general updates. Then we're going to go into a brief review of our paradigms conversation, our strategic plan and community listening tours to ground us in the conversation we're going to have today. I will go over how the top 11 were selected to move into group discussion. Then we will move into our first applicant for group discussion, Monarch Recovery, their capital application, Jeffco Sheriff's Biometrics, Jeffco Public Health. And then we will close. The next meeting is 5/12 hybrid. Commissioner Joel Kemper, are you with us?
I am. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you.
Leslie, can you talk again, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We're working on the volume. We're going to have you try again in just a moment.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, George, for letting me know. I appreciate it.
Try again.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Perfect.
So good.
Excellent.
Commissioner Marlin is here. Commissioner Hollingsworth, Michael Prang.
Yes, sorry, I am here.
Heidi McCollum. Stephen Potts. Sheriff Armstrong.
I am here.
Mayor Bud. Sophia. Janine.
I'm here.
Thank you. Troy.
Good afternoon, Troy's here.
Dr. Story.
I'm here. Thank you.
Dr. Ryan. He's here. I saw him come in.
Dr. Ryan, if you're able to join us, would you mind just dropping a message in the chat or coming off mute?
Elisa. Barb is here. Hello. Sarah. I saw.
I'm here. Yep, I'm here.
Janie and David are not. And then Kristen. Do we have quorum?
We do have quorum.
All right, there is a QR code. If those community members, Mayor Bud just walked in.
Do you have Wi-Fi here?
Yes, it's Jeffco guest. The directions are right here. All right, so there is a QR code for non-voting member check-in. If you could please take care of that, I will get to that attendance when we do our conflict of interest. We also have 2 new team members joining us today. First, I'm going to start with Amber. Amber, are you with us?
Which Amber are you referring to?
Amber Dower.
Okay, I was gonna say, not me.
Okay, so Amber Dower is from Jessica Finance. She will be joining Chris as our fiscal contact. That way, just in case Chris is out or needs a second set of eyes, we have that support. I also wanted to introduce Emily. Emily, are you with us? Emily is one of my undergraduate research students from Florida State who is coming on as a grants administration intern. So she's going to be helping me draft letters to all of our applicants. We have a next in governments an approval of last meeting on April 14th.
We'll move that we approve the minutes from the April 14th meeting.
This is Leslie. I'll go ahead and second.
We will vote by opposition in the chat and in the room. All right, the minutes are approved. We will now go into conflicts of interest for today. Any in the room?
Tanya Wheeler, Executive Director at Advocates for Recovery, and we are funded. Same thing.
Oh, sorry. This is Sean Head in Advocates for Recovery, Colorado, and we are funded. All right.
Anyone else in the room?
Mike Bryan, Commander with the Sheriff's Office, the Jeffco Biometrics in Public Health.
And Sheriff of Gilpin County, we are.
Yes, our entire Jeffco voting membership has a conflict of interest today. So that's gonna be Commissioner Dahlkemper, Michael Prang, Dr. Story, Barb, Kristen, and Bud. And then we have Nathan, the police chief from Idaho Springs. Sean Henley is an advisory board member, current application reviewer, and an applicant. Erica Hag, advisory board member. She's also the chair of some applicants, but if you're a board member, you don't have a conflict of interest. Right, I put that on there.
However, disclose it.
Yes, we are disclosing it. Sharon Hawkins is with Jefferson County Public Schools, advisory board member and application reviewer. Bethany from the Phoenix is an applicant. Brittany Noble from the BHA is a advisory board member and reviewer. Amber, I always mess up your name. Amber Keel is with Common Spirit Health, advisory board member and application reviewer. Andrea N. with Jefferson County Finance. Sasha Hutchings, executive director of Jefferson County Communities That Care. No conflict to report. And Theodora, grant writer for Colorado Coalition of the Homeless. No conflict to report. I did see Elisa coming. And Rosie just updated us that we have 14 voting members present, and that looks like all of the conflicts of interest. So brief finance report, our RFA pot of money is 11.2 million. We took out the 33,000 for the Advocates of Recovery renewal. Remember, they are rolling over unused funds. That's why that's a little bit of a lower number. And then the C-Chat renewal, which is 2 years. This is the ceiling amount. We anticipate this 1 million to be a little bit lower. Once we figure out their BHA awards and how many people they engage with have substance use disorder or substance use contact, to figure out some of those line items. So from that total award amount, our balance is $10,143,456.06. JK is joining us in the room. He's with the Stedman Group. Advisory board member. Stedman is our consulting firm. Stedman Group also has a conflict of interest. They did support some applications. In order to avoid any potential unconscious bias, we're not going to tell you which ones, but legal and I know, so that's what's important. General updates. I'm going to deviate to Advocates for Recovery. They have some exciting news.
So I'm going to let Sean share. Sean is our regional regional manager for the GROC region. And so I'm going to let you tell him about his new team.
When speaking, we can't hear them.
Were you all working on an echo in the room? Is that why there was a pause? And are you able to hear us in the room? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Are you online or in the room?
No, I was trying to mute someone else and I muted myself. I'm so sorry. So Advocates for Recovery introduced Sean, the new regional manager, and then they also hired both peer recovery coaches in Gilpin and Clear Creek. They got their van, and then they set up their office space in Clear Creek, which the Gilpin and Clear Creek recovery coach will be working out of.
The vehicle is actually not the old van. It is a Kia Telluride, all-wheel drive. It seats 8 people. It's wonderful. It's going to be fantastic in that region. Those big vans were a little big and expensive.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you so much for that update. All right, the C-Chat extension amendment, the zero additional cost contract amendment is in routing for signatures. We've also initiated a Gilpin County Sheriff Correspondent Program amendment that is en route for signatures, mostly just clarifying in the contract what the reporting requirements are. The renewal application award letters are both accepted and those have been routed to legal for contract extensions. I also met with Jack and Jamie from the COAC on Friday to talk about transplanting or subplanting funds. And so they define this as to deliberately replace funds because of the receipt of opioid settlement funds. Opioid settlement funds should be used to create, supplement, maintain, or expand program activities, not replace those funds that have already been appropriated. So we'll keep coming back to this definition. All right on time. This is going to be a really brief review when we talk about paradigms of addiction and substance use recovery. There's four main paradigms. The moral paradigm says drugs are bad, people who use drugs are bad, and you shouldn't do them. The social paradigm describes addiction and recovery through environmental factors as developing conditions for coping or escape or enforcing societal norms. My favorite paradigm is the identity paradigm, is that the relationship that individuals have with substance use can be incredibly complex and diverse. Labels serve to develop somewhat arbitrary groups and can be more accurately understood as spectrums. And then the model that we're most familiar with is the medical or disease model. Addiction is caused by physical, mental, genetic deficiencies or abnormalities. So when we did our initial review of paradigms, we were split right down the middle. No one paradigm is superior, and we want to cultivate a practice of playing between the paradigms because they are all useful in different applications that we're going to be reviewing. As a reminder of our strategic plan, we focused money on youth prevention and community-wide prevention, outpatient treatment, transitionary care specifically from incarceration to the community, medicated assisted treatment or MAT, MOUD access across the continuums, including payer sources, and then inpatient residential treatment and supportive housing with treatment. For recovery, we focused on housing, recovery support services between community-based response programs and peer-to-peer supports. And transportation was highlighted as the most important topic for both inter and intra-county round-trip transportation. Harm reduction was just a full suite of harm reduction services. However, we saw that come in. Planning and coordination is split up into two sections. The first section being workforce development, so continuing professional education modules, recruitment, hiring, retention of the workforce, including clinicians, peers, harm reductionists, workforce training and access. The second part of planning and coordination is GROC management. So that would be my salary and fringe, the Stedman Group as a consulting firm. We have an upcoming RFA for program evaluation of the council and our grantees, and then our contingency fund or our emergency fund. The emergency fund is not available for application during the RFA window. It's only available outside of that. In March, we hosted 3 in-person community listening tours, 1 in each county that comprised Region 10. For Jefferson County, the main areas of concern were transportation, Medicaid subsidies, increasing the RFA admin, Region 8, Adams County collaboration for sober living, and a Jeffco-based treatment center collaboration. Gilpin County, the primary discussion points were Narcan accessibility and trainings, first responder resource reimbursement, generating data, youth prevention education in schools, and a collaboration with Region 6 Boulder County to address the school district and how it's split between the 2 counties. In Clear Creek, it was stigma around mental health and substance use, unknown data variables, especially around stigma, interest in co-responder program because of recent cuts in mobile crisis unit, youth programming, local treatment opportunities that consider stigma and financial barriers, and a syringe exchange program. These lists are not all inclusive. These were just the main topics of discern at the March listening tour. All recordings are linked in the PowerPoint. Woo, all right. How's everyone doing? I don't think I've talked this much in a long time. All right, so how the top 11 happened. So we started with 47 applications. Do you want to say something? No? Okay, I'm used to you sitting like next to me. Okay. We started with 47 applications, which is just not humanly possible to get through all of those. And I am a person with an A through Z plan of A through Z, and I failed you. I did not have a contingency plan if we had an influx of applications. And so I recommended 36 applications be advanced to scoring simply based on the strategic plan and feasibility of the project. So if they had some implementation concerns, like this just is not going to get done in a year, I did not recommend it forward for scoring. The voting committee, the review committee did have abstracts for all 47 applications. They had the opportunity to pull an application up that I did not advance. That did not happen. The committee picked 35 applications to actually score. This still resulted in an overload of applications. I sincerely apologize to all of you. Some of you had 8 applications to review. All scores were due on Friday evening. We had an roughly 89% response rate, which is high. That descriptive statistic is important because how I handle missingness is how we get to the top 11. So I spent 6 hours running statistics. I first found the total score and the total average of all applications. I looked at the variability between scores all the way down and within individual application groups. I dropped the lowest score to get an average and then a rank. I dropped the highest score to get the average and a rank. I completed imputation, so it's where you, in 2 different ways, where you take the mean or the average of all scores and of an application group, and I fill that into missing variables, and then I gave all of the applications a rank. And there's no statistically significant difference in missingness from the current average. So my p-value was greater than 0.05. It was specifically a 0.06. So my top 11 or my top 16, when you think of like a bell curve, my top 16 and my bottom 16 are always my top and bottom 16. The ones in the middle are what move. Future funding opportunities have to work to mitigate an influx of applications because I should not have to do that many stats. But I am 95% confident that these top 11 are the top 11, regardless if missing applications are turned in or not. And that yielded this list. So today we're going to talk about capital. We have 2 capital purchases, Monarch and Jeffco Biometrics program. Their Exhibit E funding interests are recovery and harm reduction. We'll also talk about harm reduction, which is Jeffco Public Health. Then on Monday, the 12th, we'll talk about the 4 treatment applications that advanced. And then on Monday, the 9th, we will talk about the 2 recovery and 2 prevention applications that advanced. We did not have any applications in planning and coordination that met the threshold to advance into group discussion. So how it's going to work today is I'm going to give you a 4-minute spiel about the application. The individuals who scored the application will have 3 minutes to talk about the application in depth. Then we'll open the floor for 4 minutes of group discussion, asking critical questions, concerns, or things you absolutely love about the application. Then we'll move into a vote. You can vote to advance, not advance, or request to revise and resubmit. If there are outstanding critical questions that you want answered before you decide advance or not advance, that would be the request of revise and resubmit. That list of critical questions will go to the applicant tonight. They will give me their responses on Thursday. That application will move into executive committee on Monday to review and then decide advance or not advance. We're not really looking at the budget yet. I don't want you to get tied up in the budget. You can ask critical questions about the budget. I highly suggest that, but we're not looking at, we only have 10.2 million left, and this is a $1 million application. I don't want you thinking about that yet. On June 23rd, all of the applications that were chosen to advance, that is when we are going to plug and play with the budgets. Is this making sense?
With one comment, which is a decision to partially or fully fund might be best made then and not today.
Yes, yes. So if you are considering a partial fund, I do want to know that because I want to get that to the applicant so we can get a revised budget. It's more of just like a question, a heads up for me, but it would be advanced, not, yeah, the partially fund, conditionally fund, that's like later, for sure. I could have made this more clear. Amber, we do have some applicants in the room and online. We do have a list of conflicts of interest. Because this is a public meeting, I'm not initially going to ask you to leave. However, if you have a conflict of interest, I will give you one warning. After that warning, I will kick you out. Yes? Everybody online, sound good? If you are online during group discussion, please state your name and your association before you start speaking. That way we can make sure that you don't have a conflict of interest. Is everyone ready? All right, so our first applicant is going to be Monarch Recovery, their launch program for women. They're asking for $1,224,000. They are seeking funding to purchase a property in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, which is Jefferson County, to establish a dedicated women's recovery housing program. The initiative aims to address the critical service gap for women facing substance use disorder, to provide comprehensive support through various recovery services. The proposal is based off a similar type of award to the applicant through a different grant maker and different property. So the applicant demonstrates successful precedent in the proposal asked. They have summary objectives are property acquisition, financial stability, and financial accessibility. Their target population that they aim to serve low-income individuals, racial ethnic minorities, justice-involved individuals, and pregnant or parenting women. The program will focus on addressing the barriers these groups face in accessing recovery services. Strengths of the proposal summarized from the scorecards include a proven success with existing men's and LGBTQIA+ programs demonstrating effective service delivery. 2, a sustainable plan that prioritizes long-term financial stability through property ownership rather than leasing. And 3, strong community ties and a commitment to addressing the unique needs of women in recovery. Weaknesses and additional comments from the scorecards document that are addressed in the narrative. Scholarship funds and capital purchase connection. The scorecards noted a lack of clarity on how scholarship funds tie into the capital purchase. The narrative document emphasizes the financial strategy, stating that the purchase will eliminate rental expenses and allow for the reallocation of funds to improve services, including scholarships for women needs. This is specifically on page 19 of the narrative. The council can request a revise and resubmit to review the organization's financials and budget reallocation if they wish. Prioritization of residents from GROC region. The scorecards raise concern about the lack of a plan to prioritize residents from the GROC region, particularly Clear Creek and Gilpin counties. The narrative acknowledges the need for targeted outreach and referral partnerships to ensure that vulnerable populations, including those from these areas, are served effectively. That's on page 39 of the narrative. The council can request a more detailed plan to be outlined during contracting. Staffing concerns. The scorecards expressed uncertainty about staffing sustainability. The narrative outlines Monarch's commitment to maintaining a stable staff and highlights their decade-long experience in maintaining multiple recovery programs, which supports the sustainability of the proposed women's residence, again on page 39 of the narrative. Funding reliance on Medicaid. The scorecards pointed out the risk of relying heavily on Medicaid funding. The narrative addresses this by detailing plans for financial stability, including diversifying funding sources and establishing operating reserves to mitigate potential funding cuts on page 19 of the narrative. You can always request more information in a revise and resubmit. Generally, they have a good initial evaluation plan. I do encourage the council to allow me and the awardee of the upcoming program evaluation RFA to engage in capacity building around the evaluation plan. So again, their final financial budget overview is $1,224,000 from the GROC to support the property purchase. The applicant also offers an alternative option to finance the property, which requests $444,000. And I will yield the floor. 16 seconds, yes. All right, I'm gonna pass it over to Janine. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, and I'm just speaking through like what I put on my scorecard, right? Just clarify.
Yes.
Okay, so Chelsea gave the overview, Dr. Chelsea. So the strengths I found were the successful approach. So they have a men's and LGBTQIA plus program already successfully running. So there's like precedent, they have some experience. They did have that plan for financial sustainability, looking at Medicaid and other funding streams, and a real like financial audit was included as part of the work plan. And then obviously over time, purchasing the property rather than making the lease payments is a better investment, especially because the money that would have gone towards the leases is going to be reallocated into their scholarship funds to help women with financial hardship. In terms of weaknesses, I now am clear, but I wasn't clear about how the scholarship funds tied into it. But now I'm understanding it's kind of that reallocation of funding that would have gone to the lease payments. There was 2 other things that stood out. They said they were dedicated to managing it as a recovery residence for only 8 years. That just stuck out to me. It didn't seem like that long of a time if we're making a huge capital purchase for it to only be doing this for 8 years. I just wasn't sure what the plan was afterwards, or if that was negotiable. And then it looks like 11 beds are proposed. Again, don't know a ton about sober living recovery housing, if that's a lot or not. And then of course it's based in Wheat Ridge. So I was just curious how we would prioritize making sure Clear Creek and Gilpin residents got priority in those 11 beds. And then in terms of the other things in the rubric, I scored them all pretty high. It was a pretty complete application, maybe lacking some specificity in some areas, but overall it was good. And I think I'm gonna finish in 2 minutes because that's all I have.
You did great. All right, and then it will go to Commissioner Hollingsworth.
All right, can everyone hear okay? Yes? All right. So, yeah, in scoring this one, I was impressed with their long history. They have they operate 9 locations now. They are operating out of this one and leasing it. And so this is their proposal to make it more financially stable for the long term. And as was mentioned, redirect the funds to scholarships to serve more people. And they did have the option for the lower amount of funding to help purchase a building and then use blended funding from other sources. So they're not relying completely only on GROC money to do this. And then they also had mentioned in their application that they had received $3 million from the competency court system and have been working with them. And so that was good that they're blending and braiding funding from different sources as well for programming. They said that they had served 320 people in one recent year of data, which I thought was impressive. And then they also said that they could negotiate, they're open to negotiating extended terms for up to 10 to 12 years beyond the 8 years. And then under the strings, I just feel like the director that submitted is really, as I said, a go-getter. And she actually is someone with lived experience. And I know that that weighs well with our particular GROC thinking. And then also the targeting women because they lack services, and they provided data to show the lack of services in that demographic. Then under the weaknesses, I also did put down a concern whether they're going to even serve anyone from the GROC region. The way that was written, it was open to all. So I didn't see any prioritization for any county, but particularly the mountain counties. And then I had a concern about their reliance on Medicaid for funding. We all know that Medicaid is being cut back. And so if that's a real reliance, they said 80% of their program funding would be from Medicaid. So I didn't know what they're going to do if that reduces. And then it seems like they have stable staff, but that was a question I had was if they weren't able to staff this building long-term, then what would happen to the building? And then if it was an 8 to 12-year time period operating, then what? They didn't really go into a longer term strategy for the building. But overall, I think it's a really strong proposal. And I did recommend further looking at it.
Ooh, right on time.
We had a countdown. Good.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Dahlkemper, for just really quick, review committee, in the email I sent you last night, the scorecards are linked in that email. So it'll say, just a heads up, these people are speaking. It's linked under speakers and scores. You can click on that. You can also go to the restricted Google Drive folder, and it's in the, it has restricted Google Drive folder has all of the application materials for the 11 advancing by name and the scorecards and the discussion notes. Feel free to direct message Rosie if you need that information. And I will turn it over to Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Great, thanks, Dr. Chelsea. I'm going to be pretty brief because I think many good comments have already been made about this program. And I especially want to underscore the concerns, really just thoughtful concerns raised by Janine and Commissioner Hollingsworth. I guess my big question for us as we hear these concerns is, do we think these are concerns that we can address in the revision process, and or can we tackle them in contract negotiations? And so I think that's probably the biggest question I'm hearing at this point. What I especially liked about Monarch was its demonstrated track record and expertise. It's able to hit the ground running, especially given the work that this is modeled after for men and LGBTQA. I also appreciated, one piece I would stress too, is the demonstrated track record of just a varied and diverse group of community partners, major stakeholders, that really expands the breadth and depth of care that's available to clients. And I also think that this program increases access to much needed residential care, breaking down those significant barriers for women with SUDs, co-occurring mental health disorders, trauma, pregnancy, parenting, access to reproductive health, and more. I thought it was comprehensive. I thought on the whole, it was an excellent proposal. I do again think that the questions that have been raised are absolutely valid, and I really appreciate the opportunity to review this proposal. Thanks.
All right, I'm gonna give us 5 minutes instead of 4 since Commissioner Dahlkemper yielded one of her minutes. The floor is open for pointed questions. Mayor Bud.
We have an address for this property?
I do not. I can get that though.
12044 West 31st Place, Weaver.
Thank you.
002044 West 31st Place. It's on page 16 of 20 of the application.
This is like a quick yes, no question. The current owner of the property is willing to make a sale?
Yes. Any other concerns? Point of discussion? Yes.
Some of them echo the, like, I would definitely try to maximize the length of time they have to operate as a sober living, because there's no drawback, it seems like, for the county to do that. Or even for the county to own the property until they've operated it for so-and-so, because they're operating there right now, right?
Yeah.
Successfully making money. So this is a programmatically not additional beds, right?
Right.
And then 87% are possibly outside of the GROC region, the residents.
Yeah, so her services overall, 10% of the clients served across all of her properties are from outside counties or states, and 13% are from Jefferson County. But we can get an updated clarified number.
And I'll just add, I put down data insufficiency for residency because they didn't have any number for Clear Creek or Gilpin. So it looks like 0, but It's unclear.
Probably very low though.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there's not a lot of people, and that, I think we need to be cautious of assuming that that doesn't mean that she's not serving those people. It could mean that those people are not seeking services. And so she does mention a plan for targeted outreach. That could be because, one, those people don't exist. Two, maybe they're all men and they're going to a different program. Three, maybe they're going out of state. Four, maybe they don't know that she's available.
One more comment, Medicaid doesn't fund sober living. So I assume they're talking about peer coaching or clinical services, but I would want to know more about their funding. Signal funds sober living, and I'm guessing they probably get some Signal funding.
Yes.
For people, so they have scholarships for people already who are under Signal for at least the first 2 months. And then I would just want to know more about how many are self-pay, because Medicaid definitely, it can pay for counseling or peer coaching for people in sober living, but it can't pay for the sober living itself. But I don't want those questions like Monarch's an awesome organization that serves low income people. They do mental health competency, like they do a ton of great stuff. So my comments are just clarifications, really.
Yeah. So we would like more clarity on the demographics, especially regions that they serve. How they bill, including self-pay treatment Signal, because Medicaid doesn't pay for sober living, so that breakdown. Did I miss any clarifications anywhere?
I'm struggling with this one because they're applying for capital funding, acknowledging that that's going to put savings into their business model and making a promise about what to do with those savings. Alternatively, they could be applying for the thing they're suggesting to do with the savings.
So she did. I recommended that she do 2 applications, knowing that her application for capital got caught up and the whole application was denied in the last round. So she did submit an application for scholarship funding and the council did not advance that application.
So that might be a little bit informative about how we would view, is the value of this application, I guess you're getting a more sustainable access to capital. And that's hard to measure, right? But then you have a certain amount of dollars doing a certain amount of things with the scholarship program. So I just feel about it.
All right, I need a motion of some kind. Advance. That is not a commitment to fund, it's just an advance to June 23rd when we play with budgets. Non-advance, we're stopping the application, we're never gonna revisit it. Revise and resubmit. Those 2 questions from the committee will be sent to the applicant. They will have until Thursday to provide a response. The application will go into executive session on Monday at 1 o'clock, and the executive committee will vote to advance it, or they're not satisfied with those responses, and that's it. Floor is open from voting members for a motion.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I lean towards a revise and resubmit, with the third question being, can you just go into a little bit more detail about the value of what you would do with these savings? And like, yeah.
So how the budget would be reallocated?
And I will point out, instead of time duration, you could have conditions until they spend all the dollars that we're giving to them.
And I'm pretty sure that's what she does in her other contract. It was 5 years and a dollar amount. So she just keeps a ledger of every time she turns a bet over.
And just body other colleagues, that is not a motion, because I'm curious if other people have other perspectives.
The question that I had is the question that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and perhaps this is a question for Dr. Chelsea and Jean or Eric. And that is, let's say we wanted to move to advance this, and we shared with them those questions that we've captured that came up in the concerns, the question that George just asked for revisions on. Could we do that through the revision process? So that way we keep it moving, since overall, we think it's a pretty strong proposal, but they are going to have to clarify some key points for us, which would then happen in that next round of work that we would do. Is that, what is better in light of the list of questions that we have legally? And in terms of the needs we have?
Yeah, so John has been working on this for a while because I said this application was coming through and I don't want it to get stuck here. We can definitely get the answer to all of these questions during contracting. If the committee they have stipulations around this, they generally like the proposal, they want to advance it, we can skip the R&R. I will still get those answers when we get into contracting, and we will go back and forth to make sure that that is very explicit.
I'll just say, I like the R&R idea because I think there are a number of questions and it may determine how someone votes.
Yeah,
Based on the
absolutely.
answers.
This is Troy Cooper. Can I add one more question to the Monarch proposal?
Yep.
Is, since their footprint goes beyond our region, do we know if they're submitting proposals to other opioid council groups?
She operates primarily in Region 10. So she is prospecting other regional councils, but it's not the best fit at this time. So back to a motion. Are we sticking with George's original motion to revise and resubmit? I need
Hi,
a second.
Chelsea.
John, yes. Hi.
Hi, sorry. I didn't know if you could see me. I'm calling in on my phone. I just wanted to, I guess, clarify a little bit of what we would do in the contracting piece. While we certainly could work on, in the contracting piece, resolve, the details, I would think that it is the responsibility of the council to determine the material terms of what they are willing to do. And that includes things like whether we would expect in exchange for the money, a certain period of time with a certain commitment to operations, and for how many years that is. So to the extent the council would want to approve with changes like that, I think that should occur at the council, whether it's at this meeting or the follow-on meeting. I'll defer to you, Chelsea, but that is sort of a council level decision.
And John, just one quick follow-up question. Would you recommend that is a better process in revise and resubmit, given the several questions that we have for them?
Yes, I think we're going through the procedure the first time. So I'm not having gone through it once, but it sounds like that would be, very appropriate for that. Though it might be helpful for our purposes in going through that to, understand what we're hoping to accomplish through that. Is there, for example, a desire to see a longer term commitment in exchange for those funds, or any of those types of things?
Got it. So George, let me just ask real quick, would you mind restating your motion, since we said a little bit earlier that you sort of put that out as a question, but could you restate your motion? I'd be happy to second it in terms of revise and resubmit, and then we can see where our votes lie.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to move that we put this one to revise and resubmit with the questions that have been stated to be sent.
Excellent. I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Vote by opposition in the chat. In the room. All right, this application was advanced to revise and resubmit, so the executive committee agenda for Monday. If you would like to attend that meeting, you're more than welcome. That way you can hear those responses, but ultimately the executive committee will decide to advance or not advance that application. All right, we are going into Jefferson County biometrics. I'm having so much fun. like 30 pages deep, guys. All right, 4 minutes on the clock. Jefferson County is, their project title is Real-Time Biometric or Vitals Monitoring to Prevent Overdose and Withdrawal Crises in Custody. The Exhibit E primary funding area is harm reduction. They're requesting a 2-year budget of $569,762. Most importantly, this application has been parallel applied for congressional funding with an anticipated award amount in March of 2026. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office is seeking $569,562 in funding to implement a biometric monitoring system at the Jefferson County Detention Facility. This initiative aims to address the critical public health crisis related to substance use disorder among incarcerated individuals. The proposal includes the purchase of 100 biometric wristbands, charging stations, and necessary software for continuous monitoring of vital signs, particularly for inmates identified as at risk of medical emergencies, including overdoses. The summary of objectives include: 1, achieving an 80% utilization rate of devices within 4 months. 2, eliminating in-custody deaths related to preventable medical emergencies within the first year. 3, ensuring all biometric alerts are responded to within 2 minutes. 4, reducing overdose-related interventions by 25% within the first year. I do give you a description of the target population in my summary notes. Summary of strengths include expert input. The proposal incorporates insights from nursing staff, ensuring effective implementation and monitoring of the biometric devices. 2, proven technology. Similar biometric systems have been successfully implemented in other Colorado jails, demonstrating positive outcomes in reducing substance use related deaths. 3, a sustainability plan. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has outlined a funding strategy for future support beyond the initial grant cycle, aiming for long-term program viability. Weaknesses and additional comments from the scorecards document that are addressed in the narrative. Justification for 100 wristbands. The scorecards reference, it's unclear how they're justifying 100 wristbands. The narrative explains the facility responded to 46 overdose incidents, requiring administration of 72 doses of Narcan. At any given time, they manage approximately 80 individuals in a 10-day post-intake withdrawal protocol. Number 2, dependency on ongoing funding. The core scorecards reference the proposal is described as highly dependent on getting ongoing funding in order to keep it going. So it's not just buying the wristband, you also have to buy a license annually to make sure that the wristband operates. The applicant has reported pursuing congressional funding, and the council can consider partial or delayed funding. If the latter, the council might prefer to present a not fund and ask the applicant to reapply during the next GROC funding cycle after congressional awards are made. And then 3, resistance from inmates. The scorecard references concerns about potential resistance. The narrative mentions that policies will be developed to handle these situations. The council can motion a conditional fund and request to review the policy before issuing dollars. Their evaluation plan, again, generally, this is a good initial plan. The council is encouraged to allow me and our program evaluation team to engage in capacity building. They are not requesting administrative or indirect costs. Year 1 is $358,012, and then year 2 is $211.50. All right. I will yield the floor to Sarah.
Dr. Shore, you do such a good job summarizing everything that I don't have a ton to add. I just, I guess would emphasize some of the things that you said around a bulk of the funding going towards the licensing and the iCloud storage, which was a little bit concerning to me, and the justification for asking for 100 wristbands was unclear to me. But I loved, obviously, the early identification of inmates that are at a higher risk to experience a medical crisis. And then my other concern you highlighted at the end was just not having a policy around inmate refusal to wear a wristband. And I would really want to see something around that. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you. And then Jamie was unable to join us today. She was the second reviewer. Her summary says this program proposes using biometric monitoring during the intake period for individuals entering the Jefferson County Detention Facility. This monitoring will enable earlier detection of medical emergencies and therefore possibly reduce health crises, including deaths experienced by those in custody. Her three strengths were detailing the issue and use of data. 2, the system can be integrated into existing systems. And 3, a detailed rollout plan. She did not identify weaknesses or provide additional comments. I will yield the floor to Erica, who is our final reviewer.
All right, thank you. So as Dr. Shore mentioned, I think one of the strengths of the proposal was that other detention facilities have actually used this technology, so it's not new and unproven. So I really appreciated that part. And I saw that there was a plan for future funding for the grant cycle, even though it is something that requires funding in an ongoing fashion for the licensing. And let's see. Again, I think as already pointed out, as Sarah said, you know, this technology is offering a solution to reduce preventable medical emergencies while in custody. So I liked that. So weaknesses, kind of the same thing, that they are also dependent on the ongoing funding, right? So it's a strength and a concern at the same time that they have a plan for it, but also it is required in order to, that ongoing funding is required to keep this program going. Another potential weakness is, as Sarah mentioned, is the forcing the inmates to wear the devices, or not necessarily forcing them, but having a policy around how you're going to encourage the inmates to wear them. So I would be interested in seeing kind of what that plan looks like. And then also just something that kind of stuck out in my mind is that this requires, and this isn't necessarily a negative of the application itself, this is just how technology works, that, you know, as technology changes and advances, you know, is there a chance that this technology that they're putting so much time and effort into becomes obsolete at some point? And then you kind of have to start the whole thing over. So again, not necessarily a negative in the actual application. Overall, I really liked the application because I'm very much a like cause and effect, and like here's A, B, C, and D. So I really liked that there were very measurable goals and that it's not subjective in any way. That's all I have.
All right, same thing. Some people yielded personal time, so I'm going to get 5 minutes on the clock. The floor is open for general discussion. I did specifically ask the studying group to do some research on this if they want to kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So initial thoughts, just connecting back to the issue of potentially supplanting funds. I know they've applied for additional funding and we'll find out about that in March 2026. We don't view this as a conflict because they have not been awarded the funds at this time. And these GROC funds would hypothetically launch the new program rather than expand an existing one, which aligns with the COAX definition. So those are initially our thoughts on supplanting funds. JK, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Perfect.
Well,
Awesome. And then one thing that I did further research on was the effectiveness of the technology, specifically in terms of wristbands. So I referred to a couple of research articles, one from Oteo 2023. I'll link these in the minutes as well. One from TAS, established in 2023. And essentially, these devices are still emerging. Obviously, we know how slowly the body of research can move. It sounds like anecdotally, other Colorado detention facilities have had success with this. I'd be curious to see those numbers because the research suggests that further testing is needed to establish the effectiveness. While it's better than nothing, I am cautious about the evaluation metrics and whether they will be able to fully achieve what they've told us that they could, particularly in terms of achieving a 100% reduction of in-custody deaths related to overdose or other preventable medical emergencies. And this is just due to the newness of the technology and the lack of a body of research saying that they can actually do this and effectively provide that biometric tracking via wristband. So given the newness of the technology, I'm hesitant to say that that's a feasible goal. However, additionally, something is much better than nothing. So those are kind of my perspectives on the application. JK, anything to add?
I think it's great. It's a really good advocate. Really, really well. And just the fact most jails don't release overdose data. They pretend it doesn't happen. So just the fact they put that in there is pretty cool, and that they have all these data. It's pretty advanced. And the effectiveness, I'm not sure, but I do know, I think it was in 2015, Jefferson County had a significant lawsuit for withdrawal related to that. And this amount dwarfs that amount. So if it can prevent adverse outcomes, I mean, it's great. Like, it's great for a vulnerable population, but it's also good in that there is a cost benefit to it.
Any questions on what JK or I have shared? Let me check the chat as well. I don't see any questions in the chat, but please feel free to come off mute or provide any in the chat as well.
This is Leslie. I had one really quick follow-up question. I noticed in the notes that I had pulled up from the reviewers that there was a question about noting that other counties, as you've mentioned, use these devices. But there was a question about what well, I'll ask if you came across any data about what percentage of inmates agree to wear the devices. Is there anything in the research that you've done that demonstrates that? Because I know one of the reviewers had asked a question about that piece, because of course that could have an impact on the program's successfulness.
Yeah, great question. So the majority of the research that I came across looked at the effectiveness of this in like more medical related settings, not necessarily carceral or justice involved settings. So I would be curious to know that as well from the spaces that are using this for people who are incarcerated, but I don't have that data off the top of my head.
No, no worries. And it's not a non-negotiable for me by any means. I was just curious. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that that could be a really valuable evaluation metric to potentially add is refusal of wearing and potentially digging into some of those qualitative metrics of why and whether, you know, rollout of this program, how it's explained to people as well.
I have a question on the funding. So this says that their goal is that they are going to have an 80% utilization within 4 months. And then I think you mentioned that they had identified other funding that may be available in March 2026. So what happens in between? The 4-month benchmark. Let's say it goes to 6 months for using all 100, then what happens in the next 9 months as far as wristbands and utilization?
That's a really great question.
They would be actually they would actually be using them, and then they can braid funding. So we can buy the monitors and we can buy 1 year of licensing. If they get congressional funding in March 26, that would fund their licensing and cloud storage for the continued use.
And then if they don't?
Well, it's what we agreed to fund or not. So we can do 1 year with a conditional second year. They can continue to reapply for GROC funds. They can continue to apply for funds elsewhere. That's a risk.
It seems like there's a service gap in here.
So if you take, Michael Miller put in the chat, they mentioned the specific vendor they're proposing working with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in small 4-site labs. It's on their budget in the additional implementing organizations.
I know we're over time. I'm sorry. I want to observe that there is compelling statistics about the number of people entering into the jail that need monitoring because of drug withdrawal. There is not any statistics about the number of deaths from opioid overdose in any given time period. And that is the problem they're suggesting solving, unless I'm not reading.
I thought that too. It is in, they said they had 5, page 6 of 13. Between 2022 and 2024, ACDF experienced 5 in-custody deaths directly linked to overdose or withdrawal. 3 more involved medical incidents that will not tie directly to substance use involved individuals with documented histories of substance use.
Thank you.
I've spent a lot of time looking for that.
And then Michael Miller also asked Any discussion of their procedures or strategies for actually addressing withdrawal symptoms and emergencies, or only include how they'll monitor for symptoms and emergencies? I don't think it's in the application.
They have a medication for opioid use disorder program. I don't know how widespread it is, but they're supposed to continue anybody who's on medications and start people who aren't on them. Can't vouch for whether they do that for 100% of people, but they do have a MOUD program, definitely.
Dr. Chelsea, our GEFCO people have a conflict on this application, is that right?
Yes.
So I guess we need to be careful they don't advocate for or against this application.
Did any of them speak?
I asked the question.
Oh, you asked a question.
Yes,
Oh,
and then
okay.
there's questions from Michael Miller.
Oh my gosh, that's so, I was yelling at all of you that I was gonna kick you out, and here I am, like, questions
I'm
spot.
sorry, I didn't even think of it.
Oh my gosh, neither did I. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so non-Jeffco people, we need a motion to advance. Remember, this is not a commitment to fund yet. Not advance, we stop the application, or send it into R&R, revise and resubmit.
This is Troy Cooper. I'll motion to advance.
George, I'll second that.
All right, this application has advanced.
Should we add that motion?
Yes. You have to sit next to me. All right, we're gonna vote by opposition in the chat or in the room. Well, the room has conflicts, my bad.
Abstentions?
Well, no, I have your list abstaining, so it's fine. Are there any oppositions in the chat?
I don't.
There's a memorandum of understanding that he's on.
That was on the next one, or that's on the public health.
Dr. Story.
Hey, real quick, just to clarify, since this is my first time, if we have a conflict of interest, okay, so I assume now that like my conflict of interest would be for any agency in the county?
Yes, because you receive a paycheck from the same entity.
Okay, we're governed by different, like we have different governance structures, so it's just something I wanted to clarify that like my boss is the board and their boss is the voters, so like it's a little bit different, but in the sense of voting, then with our conflicts of interests assumed, we don't vote at all.
Correct, and Dr. Story, this is Eric Cutler. This round cast a very broad net on conflicts, and you are right, and I understand that public health, library, for instance, are going to have very different structures. But we are taking if you get a paycheck from Jefferson County, don't vote on a Jefferson County approach here, just to be very conservative.
Okay, and then also not stating anything to Michael's chat.
Yeah.
The best approach is just to stay out of the conversation to avoid any concerns of pushing it one way or the other.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so there's no opposition. This application has advanced. It will be discussed again on June 23rd. The voting committee and all scores, because you still weigh in on group discussion, are encouraged to read the entire application before that June 23rd meeting. All right. Last application. Jefferson County Public Health has a project titled Regional Harm Reduction, Expansion, and Sustainment, Clear Creek, Gilpin, Jefferson Counties. The Exhibit E primary funding area is harm reduction. I had to do some playing with this budget So the actual 2-year amount is $1,525,000. $1,525,688.96. Because they have rent and a vehicle purchase that was initially factored into that 10% admin, and that's not allowed, and that's my fault, like, we should have a list of what is allowed to be factored into the 10% admin, so I had to do some restructuring of the budget. But they submitted a grant proposal to expand its harm reduction program across Jefferson, Clear Creek, and Gilpin counties that make up Region 10. The initiative aims to address the rising opioid crisis, particularly the increasing rates of fentanyl overdose. Again, that number was wrong because I got the numbers fixed this morning. I apologize. So their summary objectives are to expand harm reduction services across the region, conduct a locally led needs assessment, transition to 4-year transform infrared spectroscopy. Wow, that is a tongue twister. Scale and formalize a harm reduction peer support model, invest in harm reduction workforce development, identify and renovate a physical site. Their target population includes people who use drugs across the region. The program specifically focuses on individuals facing systemic barriers to accessing harm reduction services, overdose prevention tools, and healthcare. Key characteristics included diverse background, vulnerability, geographic challenges, health disparities, and limited resources. Summary strengths of the application include a comprehensive approach, qualified staff, and innovative technology. Weaknesses and additional comments from the scorecards that are addressed in the narrative. 1, lack of clarity on engaging people who use drugs in Clear Creek and Gilpin. The narrative outlines a plan to expand mobile and street-based outreach tailored to the unique challenges faced by rural mountain communities, ensuring that people who use drugs receive critical support. This includes conducting a structured needs assessment led by people who use drugs to capture service gaps and barriers. That's on page 22 of the narrative. I would also like to note that this plan can be built into the contract as a required deliverable, requiring council input or approval. Number 2, concerns about the physical location of the service hub. The scorecards comment on the location of the physical hub in West Jefferson County, which may be difficult for people in Clear Creek or Gilpin to reach. The narrative states that the new physical location will be selected based on accessibility for the target population, ensuring it reduces existing barriers and increases program engagement, page 22 of the narrative. The budget also includes a line item for a vehicle to address transportation concerns. The council can conditionally fund the applicant and write into the contract that the GROC has input on the new location. An undefined milestone and accountability in grant making. The narrative includes a comprehensive evaluation plan that outlines performance indicators and data collection. This is, in terms of the timeline, this is partly due to the ambiguous award schedule, but these will be clearly defined in all awards during contracting. The council can request a revise and resubmit with a more specific milestone timeline. The need for a plan to address long-term needs and lack of transportation. The scorecards ask clarifying questions regarding how much time will be spent in street-based mobile outreach in Clear Creek and Gilpin. The narrative emphasizes the importance of transportation barriers on page 31. The council can request this be clearly defined during contracting. Like the 2 other applications, generally it's a good initial evaluation plan. You're encouraged to let me do some capacity building during contracting. I did give you a budget breakdown with the correct numbers, taking those items out of the admin cost. And then I will turn it over to Elisa. And just remember, Jeffco has a conflict of interest. So now we know you can't even ask questions. Elisa, when you're ready.
I wasn't unmuted, sorry. I guess I'm a little confused, Chelsea. When you did your review, you were referring to pages of the narrative, and I printed out what I thought was the narrative, and mine only had 14 pages. So I'm a little concerned that I did not get the correct narrative, or don't have all the information because I don't have a page 22 of a narrative, but at any rate, I did review what I had, and that's what we're doing right now. This proposal was very well written and thorough. It's staffed by highly qualified people with lived experience. And if funded, it would allow Jefferson County Public Health to retain their harm reduction program, which it was stated in the proposal that they would be at risk of losing their current funding. So those were my three strengths. And then the weaknesses were similar to a couple of that you pointed out, Chelsea. They state that they will use the funds to create a new physical location selected on accessibility for the target population. But I don't know if the physical location will be at all accessible to to Clear Creek and Gilpin County. They did talk about mobile, so I wasn't really clear about the difference between the mobile services and the physical location. And then the proposal states that peer support is not currently available in Gilpin. I can't speak to Jeffco, but I can speak to Gilpin, that we do have peer support available. We have advocates for recovery and other options for people. Jefferson Center also currently provides mobile services for peer support for the mountain communities. It also states that peer support would improve participant navigation to housing and healthcare and treatment options, but I don't know how that would work again for Gilpin County. I can only speak to Gilpin County since we don't have housing, healthcare, or we do have treatment options through Jefferson Center. The proposal also states that the program will provide training for law enforcement, healthcare professionals, and social service agencies, but doesn't specify how this will happen or be funded. Again, I look at this through a lens for Gilpin County because that's the county that I'm an expert on and I represent. And so I personally didn't feel that based on what I read in the proposal in the 14 pages that I had in the narrative, that they had the resources or the plan to do some of the things they proposed specifically in Gilpin County. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing out my mistake, Elisa. I did drop the corrected page numbers in the chat. I will update the digital version of my summary notes for you. I had a long weekend getting all of this prepared with a very quick turnaround. So I do sincerely apologize. We will turn it over to Sarah Casano and or Dr. Gillingham.
Hi, this is Sarah Gillingham. A lot of our strengths and weaknesses parallel what Elisa just said. Lisa, I think I said your name correctly. Sorry if I made a mistake there. But we really highlighted the strengths of clearly outlined program goals, providing services to all 3 counties with an emphasis on assessing needs in those 3 the 3 areas. The staff identified has significant background and experience that would support the success of the program. And it uses multiple strategies such as the hub and outreach, the mobile and community-based services for people who use drugs. And also thought a strength was addressing that workforce sustainability, but also highlighted some concerns around the physical location and access to people in Clear Creek and Gilpin, and questions about how much time will be dedicated to Clear Creek and Gilpin. Also questions about the incorporation of public health in Clear Creek and Gilpin, and if that had if there had been outreach to the public health departments there and the feasibility of that. Also was kind of curious about the different harm reduction services already being provided. I know of some in Clear Creek. I don't know about Gilpin as much, but just curious about the the service, if it's duplicating any services already being provided in Clear Creek, at least. And so those, I think that about summarizes it.
Okay, we got mini heart attack. We're fine. All right, thank you so much. And then we will turn it over to Mayor Bud.
I have a conflict on this one.
So this is,
I'm not.
this is the one that you have the conflict on, but not the biometrics. Okay. All right, so we're gonna turn it over to Erica.
All right, so as already mentioned a few times, I really love that the proposal takes a comprehensive approach, combining outreach, community engagement, workforce development, you know, kind of all of the above for harm reduction best practices. I think it's great that there's some new technology involved, the FTIR spectroscopy, there we go, for the drug checking. And I also like that they have a strong plan for engaging the Jeffco residents, but also plan to engage Clear Creek and Gilpin through the connections with public health. Weaknesses, so I guess I had some concerns because I feel like, and I don't know that this was necessarily mentioned by Dr. Shore, but you know, they mentioned that their funding is of concern going forward. Like if they don't get this, how are they going to fund the program? And so there's no real clear path for funding in the future to maintain the services outlined in the proposal after GROC funding ceases. So that was kind of a concern for me, I felt like. And so, you know, maybe is it GROC is funding, the GROC funding is only kind of prolonging the inevitable closure of the program potentially, not really sure. There appears to be just a little clarity around how the program plans to engage drug users in these counties outside of the mobile units because of just the single location of the building. So I think and how they're going to create the partnerships with local entities, they talk about it, but I think that concern was already addressed before as well. Then I had a third one, although I don't think it's in the packet. I felt like the milestone timelines were somewhat undefined, possibly leading to a lack of accountability in grant reporting. The evaluation plan includes a good amount of subjective data analysis versus hard metrics. Could lead to some uncertainty around whether or not the program is actually working as designed. Go ahead.
All right. And again, I will put 5 minutes on the clock for group discussion. So remember, our Jeffco people cannot ask questions, cannot speak. Floor is open. Points of concern, points of discussion.
I'll just reiterate that the concern about the duplication of services. I didn't review this one, but just listening, it sounds like maybe they're not aware what the other counties are currently doing, and they're proposing to fill in what they perceive as gaps that may not be gaps. And then I know, like in Gilpin County, we have tried through Jefferson Center mobile mat, and it rarely gets used. And that's been an effort that's been tried since the pandemic. So I'm not sure about the mobile approach in getting out the word, so it'll be utilized. So I was thinking maybe if there's actually a comparison chart about what they want to offer and whether it's being offered or if it is a gap, that would help someone like me know if they're really addressing a problem or if that problem exists.
That would be helpful to me too. I mean, Clear Creek County offers, our public health offers some, I would call very limited harm reduction services. So seeing how those overlap, this is a much more comprehensive program, is of interest to me as well. I think specific questions around sort of scheduling and strategic planning around how this mobile operation will work. I want to point out when we're talking about geographic equity, we talk about Clear Creek and Gilpin a lot. There's also a population of Jeffco residents that's more than the populations of Clear Creek and Gilpin in that same region, and they have the same equity concerns.
This is Amber Courtier with Common Spirit Health. No conflicts to report. I was just going to echo the mobile unit efficacy as well. As much as it's nice to have versatility, I think it's been implemented in the state long enough that we may need to be thoughtful of its utilization and impact. And I think, from my understanding, it tends to be telehealth is even, just as effective, if not more. So I just would want to be thoughtful of making that investment in something that may not have as much of the impact as initially thought. And then I have to imagine, I didn't review this one, but I have to imagine that their perspective and their comments on the need for this funding is unique timing in our state's budget and some clawbacks of our significant budget deficit in the state of Colorado this year faced that very well could be why they're in a situation of identifying funding sources in a more desperate circumstance.
Yeah, so they do quote the entire program as being $2,269,424.44, but they're only asking for the $1,525,000. So it's roughly 50% of the total program cost that they are asking.
Maybe a helpful, just asking them to clarify the threats to their funding would be helpful. They may have more information now. The state is now passed a budget. I hope.
Are you talking about a full financial report is what you would want?
No, I mean, like you referenced that there's a threat to the sustainability of your funding. Can you expand on that?
Okay.
I'm also curious about, how it's intersecting with services that may already be available, but I don't know that that's necessarily on them to say, or is that something we need to figure out amongst us?
Hi, everyone. This is Elisa again, Gilpin County Public Health. I didn't bring this up earlier, but I want to add that I wasn't really clear on the need for the new technology. I don't know how that would benefit drug users. I'd not heard of this technology before, and I just didn't get a clear idea from the proposal what the true benefits of using the equipment that they want to purchase for identifying harm within drugs. I'm just not versed well enough in that, and I don't know if anybody on the call can speak to this new technology. That's obviously not from Jefferson Center, but I don't know if anyone knows anything about it.
Elisa, you think it's fair to phrase that question as like, can you just expand on the value of this technology relative to other approaches like test strips?
Correct. That's the way to rephrase it. Thank you.
I can respond. It tells you everything that's in drugs and what percent. So xylazine, nitazene analogs, fentanyl versus fentanyl test strips just say yes or no. And if there's this much, then it tests yes. This gives you, I can't describe the like overall public health effectiveness of it, but it does tell you everything that's in whatever sample you're analyzing.
And my understanding too is that it's more real time, versus, blood pressure, something different. Like it's definitely.
It says so just so people know, test strips only work if you use them correctly, and 99% of people do not use them correctly. You cannot test this much of your drugs. You have to test all of your drugs. You literally have to dilute all of your drugs in water, use a test strip, and then if they come back as clean, you have to rebake your drugs. You can't just test a small portion of your drugs. A little education for people at home. But this tests all of your drugs without that same process.
But it also has to be in real time, so it's only gonna work for like face-to-face contact in the moment. I know this is a discussion I had with our coroner. There's a bill moving through to retain blood samples taken when the person is processed, because, you know, later in the day, down the road, a couple days, it all changes. So it might be beneficial to some degree. I just don't know as far as addressing, reducing opioid use and substance abuse, whether it's going to be beneficial.
All right, I do have to move into a vote. It's a motion to advance the application. Remember, that is not a commitment to fund at this time. Not advance, or we can request a revise and resubmit. Let me know if you want me to read what we're requesting and what.
I'm gonna put my neck out there. I think we should advance this application.
Without a revise and resubmit?
We've got a list of questions. I would just advance them and have them answer the questions.
No, that's the whole purpose of a revise and resubmit. If you advance them, you don't get a revise and resubmit. You don't get answers to your questions. It goes straight to, we're playing with the budget. If you want answers to these questions, it needs to go to revise and resubmit. I'm only pressing you because I think you want answers to these questions.
Did you make a motion, actually?
I did not.
Okay. I'll make a motion to submit it for revise and resubmit to seek out answers to the questions.
I'll second that.
All right, so motion by, or vote by opposition, I guess, in the chat. Bud. Oh, no, never mind, just kidding. That's not mine. It's hard to manage all of you. So we are voting by opposition in the chat. We are requesting a revise and resubmit.
Dr. Chelsea, there's a hand up. I don't know.
I can't see that. I got so many
Okay.
things going on. Thank you. Who has a hand up?
It is I.
Yes, Dr. Ryan.
As the public health director for Clear Creek County, I obviously didn't read this particular grant application, but more importantly, wasn't even aware of it in terms of the reciprocation of services here for our county. I don't know if that's going to be reflective of the efforts that are ongoing in future for collaboration with Clear Creek and Gilpin. I think it speaks volumes in terms of us unaware of efforts to work with us into the future. The fact that we didn't even know this existed, never were contacted in any way, shape, or form about what we offer or don't offer. Are there gaps in our services here in Clear Creek? Yeah, but that is warrants a conversation, not $1.5 million grant throwing our name on there to suggest that somehow they're going to help us too.
So is that an opposition or just a point of contention to put in the minutes?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet where I'm landing on that.
Oh, but I need a vote.
Yes, that's opposition.
Okay.
Where are we at? So if that's only opposition, is it advanced or?
It would advance.
Okay, so it has advanced to revise and resubmit. Just to clarify what we're asking and to revise and resubmit, this is where we can add more questions. Is that we would like more insight on the memorandum of understanding partnerships, why they're needed and how they support the goals. Clarity on how they intend to reach the target population. We would like a comparison chart of services between Clear Creek, Gilpin, and what this program offers. More clarity around the mobile and street outreach plans, like how does that work? Clarity on time dedicated in Clear Creek and Gilpin, so scheduling and strategic planning, understanding that Jeffco has double the population with equity concerns. Describe collaborating with Clear Creek and Gilpin Public Health Departments, especially since this application is being advanced without their knowledge. By the way, guys, that was the whole point of the letter of acknowledgement. Should have done that. Plan for sustainability post the GROC award. So we would like more information on their financials of the whole $2 million project and the threats to funding. Clarity on milestones and timeline, and a description of the new technology and its purpose. Is there anything else we would like to request in the revise and resubmit?
I put in chat, Dr. Chelsea, I don't know, like a letter of support, just to acknowledge that there is a more formalized outreach. As Dr. Ryan mentioned, it sounds like there may not have been.
Yeah, they would have had to submit that with the application.
With the
materials.
application, okay, so yeah, too late to, okay.
No, you can't. No, sorry. Anything else that we would like to include in the revise and resubmit? All right, so that will go out to them tonight. They will have until Thursday to get back to me. Executive committee will be talking about the Monarch Capital and the Jeffco Public Health. So we'll have about 20 minutes of discussion time. I will read you their R&R requests. Also, I do want to go back just to the Jeffco Sheriff Biometrics. We advanced that. There's still questions unanswered. Is everyone aware of how the revise and resubmit or the advance works? We're sticking with the advance. You guys are the only two people I can.
It was revise and resubmit was the motion.
For Jeffco Sheriffs, I went back.
Oh.
For the biometrics.
Are you asking if we're comfortable with advance?
Yeah.
Because there were questions?
Yeah.
I'm personally not, but that was the motion and I didn't.
But I'm wondering, because George was like, oh, we can just advance this, we'll get the questions later. And I said, no, that's not how that works. I want to make sure, because again, this is our first day doing this, that the people who advance the biometrics understands that you don't get an R&R, that goes straight to the budget. Troy made that motion, so I'm going to ask him.
You're asking me.
So your motion was to advance the Jeffco Sheriff's Biometrics application. And people had unanswered questions. I just want to make sure that you know, if it advances, it goes straight to budgeting. We don't get answers to those questions.
Just recapping what those questions were, they were questions around the policy for refusal for inmates who do not wish to participate. Also questions on the sustainability plan, as well as a note that it was unclear how they are justifying the need for 100. So those were kind of the concerns that were raised in this. And I also want to highlight a message from Sarah Casano in the chat. I just want to echo my support for Dr. Ryan's concerns, and I'm looking forward to seeing the revised application if that's where we land. That is in regards to the public health application that was received.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not in the, so what is the threshold for passing the motion? Because we had one opposition on that. How many does it take to not pass the motion?
We need super majorities, so 75% have to vote in favor
75%
of a substantial
the voting members present and voting.
of those who vote.
Yes.
Those who are eligible to vote?
No, I think if we're having people who are recused from voting, I would only count the people voting. So for instance, if 8 people voted, you could only have 2 no votes. If there were 3 no votes, even though it's 5 to 3, that would.
But if you were recusing yourself, you wouldn't be eligible to vote, so it would be the eligible votes.
Interesting.
Just to try to get us back to Chelsea, you asked a question of Commander Cooper I think what you're recommending that motion, that application go to revise and resubmit. And you're asking Troy
To withdraw his
if he
motion.
withdraws motion and make a motion to send that to revise and resubmit.
Yeah, that's fine. I can withdraw my motion and,
I was asking to withdraw. I just want to make sure that you understood the motion you were making and give you the opportunity to withdraw the motion.
And who did the second?
Who
Because
did the second?
they'll have to withdraw too.
The second was Commissioner Marlin.
We have to withdraw in a second.
I would
Yeah.
like to withdraw my motion and resubmit as revise and submit.
Second.
Did we do that correctly? Do we have that?
We don't need to follow Robert's rules, the letter, and maybe an amended motion, but I think everybody gets the idea.
Okay, so all applications today are getting a revise and resubmit this evening because we have outstanding questions. They're gonna go into group discussion at the executive committee on Monday, who based on those responses will vote to advance, or that's it, we're done with the application. So voting members, if you are invested in this, please attend the executive committee meeting on Monday.
After reading.
After reading, yes. All right, okay, day one, we did it. We're getting the hang of it. Gilbert and Clear Creek folks who were unable to attend in person, I will give your packets to your respective commissioner. And then the packets are only for today because, yes, I understand I have a PhD, but I got in a fight with the printer. I got in 4 fights with the printer and it was very hard. So I will get you packets for 5/12 and 6/9 at a later time. You do have digital versions of all the 11 applications in that restricted Google Drive. So please review them, get ready for group discussion. Everyone has calendar invites. Everyone is going to R&R. So yeah.
Isn't next week the next exec?
Yeah, that's exact. I initially did not put all exact meetings on here.
And just to clarify for folks, the executive committee, that meeting, I don't think technically you all will have votes there. I also think that the executive committee is committed to listening to the perspectives in the room and is gonna err towards not like unilaterally ending an application that we know people want to fund. Just a little bit of this is what to expect in the executive committee meeting. But you can tell me if you think I'm speaking out of school here.
No, I think.
George, this is Leslie. I thoroughly agree with that. I'm so glad you made that comment. I also just wanted to give a huge shout out to Chelsea for her incredible work in terms of preparing this entire team to look through this enormous amount of RFPs, because we know that you also had to do some significant work. And one of the things that I found as I was reviewing the applications is I would look for information to check in against, and sure enough, it was right there to follow. And I would just encourage all of you, if there are ideas that you have moving forward, either ways to strengthen or things that you especially like that you'd like to see to continue forward, please let us know. But Chelsea, just incredible work on this, and can't thank you enough. This is a huge, huge lift. You have been in the center, the eye of the storm in terms of making this happen. And we know we're in good hands with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. All right, executive committee on May 5th, full committee May 12th. In person is preferred. As always, it's going to be in this room. There's always a hybrid option. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here to support you all. See everyone next Monday.
It looks like Sarah has a question. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Is it too late?
No.
Never too late.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I have a hard time tracking everything, but I just want to clarify the meeting on the 8th with the executive committee to review questions that we had today. The decision won't be made around, okay, yes, we're going to fund this, and then later we'll discuss budget, right?
No, it's just an advance. It's not a decision to fund, it's a decision to advance. And then on June 23rd, we'll do a final ranking and playing with the budget. So someone could still get not funded on the 23rd.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not a decision to fund, it's only a decision to advance.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
It's for the good news. Yes.